Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christopher again, and I wanted to make a different type of video than my usual iceberg videos. So, I'm sure most of you have seen, the latest episode of The Mandalorian, and it kind of had me thinking of the Dark Troopers, and I wanted to get a little deep dive onto, its creation and how it stems from its history in the Star Wars universe, because my god, dude, it just looked freaking cool. So, we'll start from the Phase Zero Dark Troopers, and then maybe in the next two videos we'll move on to eventually Phase 3. So, let's begin. The Phase Zero's Dark Troopers were created in the early years of the Empire's deal with a shortage of experienced troops and was managed by a lieutenant named Rom Mok. And, for those who are not familiar, Rom Mok was basically the hero of the Clone Wars and served for the Galactic Republic, and would later serve for the Galactic Empire. And he was the perfect man for this type of job since he was deeply involved with cybernetics, as you see, in this video, and his combat during the time of the Clone Wars. But, however, spoilers, he would face his death by Kyle Katarn. But, anyways, let's get back to the topic of the Phase Zero Dark Troopers, and that's a little bit of background history of, the guy that was in charge of all these sort of plans. Initially, the development of the Phase Zero Dark Troopers would be started in the hidden space station in the Dominus system. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, but it's fine. And this idea had originally been started due to the fact that, some of these aged veterans of the Clone Wars, aka, the clones themselves, they wanted to return to their peak conditions, but they couldn't because of the fast aging process of them. But they would become at a price of enhancing them by removing their limbs and organs and replacing them with cybernetic parts for their clones' bodies. So just imagine like in Quake 4 when you get strongification, but less force and not as brutal as you see in that game. But it's kind of cool seeing that these type of cybernetic parts were the same that would transform Darth Vader as how he would get his appearance later in the movies. I'm pretty sure goddamn well who he is. But it's kind of crazy to think that some of these clones will get up to like 80% of their body replaced just to get back to the fight. And in the words of a great man named Tup, good soldiers follow orders. But these clones are such badasses, they would go to these lengths just to complete their orders. But some of these Dark Troopers were split into two specialized classes, including the Dark Trooper Commander and the Elite Dark Troopers. So I'll get a little information on these two boys, starting with the Commanders and the Elite versions as well. Okay, so let's start off with the Dark Trooper Commanders. They were basically just the upgraded versions of the Dark Troopers that are served as commanding officers for the Dark Trooper project, and they were basically designed by colored markings on their helmets and as well as colored pauldrons, and were considered, a Dark Trooper, equivalent to basically a Stormtrooper commander. Except these boys could actually hit their markers, unlike the fucking Stormtroopers. And hopefully in the future, and maybe in the Mandalorian, maybe there might be an episode dedicated to some of these two Stormtroopers to be able to hit their shots, because I don't know what the hell it is, but these soldiers are so fucking incompetent of their jobs. They're just props, man. And they probably are, but it's fine. Just get the heroes to blast them boys, just to make them look good. So let's go to the Elite Dark Troopers. Yeet. Now, the Elite Dark Troopers were a variant of, Dark Troopers that were used by the Galactic Empire with a more, exaggerated helmet, and they had far more advanced program than their standard counterparts. And with these advanced battle droids, they were meant to serve as super soldiers, and then their standard equipment were consistent of a blaster cannons, SC-14C pistols, and their grenades, thermal detonators, and of course their stun grenades. So you can only imagine how fucking terrifying these Elite Dark Troopers were, seeing that, in the comics they did indeed like kill Jedi and they were just not to be fucked with. But they wouldn't last very long due to the fact of the high cost the Empire would have to pay for these boys, so essentially maybe paying for like a nuclear bomb. They may be this around the same price, so that's probably why they were intervened. But it's kind of cool seeing that they would make their appearance, not as their Phase 1 counterparts, but as their Phase 3, which I'll make a video in the future discussing this, since this is seen in The Mandalorian. But eventually, it kind of came to, an end, and it's kind of crazy. But there was a high price of, like, turning mostly these clones, or soldiers, into these Dark Troopers, and at least in the Phase 0 phase. So, let's start off with that. Now, as stated before, you might be thinking, well, if they were so goddamn efficient, why weren't they used more? Well, like I stated previously, they were expensive, but there were other major side effects that would go into play. And for many of these clone troopers, they either had to be volunteered or forced into the Zero Dark Troopers project, and many of these clones could not cope with the state of being more machine than man and attempted suicide. So, yeah, that isn't the greatest thing, seeing that, you don't want your soldiers to be dead after upgrading them, and it's really, really bad. And the project will eventually shut down as the Empire grew in power and the recruitment rate of non-clones rose. Clones, sorry. But as many as you've seen in the latest episode of The Mandalorian, instead of clones being used for the Dark Troopers, you would see that they would be replaced by droids, seeing that they would be more efficient and there would be less side effects. But again, since the cost was too high, you wouldn't really see them interpolated as often seen. The Empire was pretty much gone at this point, so they couldn't have like any more money. But that's about it for the Phase Zero Dark Troopers, and yeah. And that's about it for the Phase Zero Dark Troopers. And next time we'll be discussing the next two phases of Dark Troopers. So I know this video is a little bit short, seeing as there might not be as much information I could find, but I hope you enjoyed these little segments. And this is, I guess you can consider the first episode of this lore history, where I'll go into detail discussing, many things I like, or whatever you have it. But definitely next time we'll get to the next two phases. And I'm CRISPR. I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you so much for subscribing. So check us out more often. Bye.